BTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, another treat this week. FLW touring professional Bradley Hallman in studio, going to break down everything that went down at Grand Lake. And Bradley, you got some fans out there, man.
Oh, well, that's what you keep telling me, but I don't know.
You do. You have some fans. People really appreciate you coming in and breaking down your week during each of your FLW tour stops. So we're going to break down Grand Lake, a stingy Grand Lake. You ended up having a, what, top 15 finish? Is that what it was?
Yep.
A tough, what, third day for you?
Brutal.
Very, very tough day.
Brutal third day.
All right, we'll get into that and talk a little bit about some of the other stuff going on. I've got a couple of housekeeping items here. The first thing that I want to talk about, there was a very, I guess weird is not the right word, but just a kind of a bizarre press release that came out late. It was either late last night or super early this morning. I think it was late last night, yeah, because the timestamp on it is 11:44 p.m.
Joe Exotic?
No, and people outside of Oklahoma probably don't know who that is. And we don't need to get into Joe Exotic here. Anyway, it was a press release from the company called Tight Lines UV. You remember that company?
Absolutely.
All right, now I'm just going to read it because it was only 3 paragraphs. Very, very short paragraphs. It says, Tight Lines UV Technology has announced it is filing a patent infringement lawsuit in U.S. Federal District Court for the District of South Carolina, Columbia Division against tackle giant Pure Fishing Incorporated. Up until the company's sale of in November of 2018 to private equity firm Sycamore Partners based in New York, Pure Fishing Incorporated sold fishing lures such as its quote-unquote power bait, sent in line under the brand name Berkeley, who, according to its website, touts itself as the world's leading fishing tackle company. The lawsuit is based on U.S. patent number 867728, which was awarded to Tight Lines UV Technology March 11th, 2014, following an application applied to the USPTO April 22nd, 2019. That's it. That's all they say. Now, I know this happens quite a bit, and we kind of went into it a little bit when we did the Chatterbait documentary, but quite honestly, this press release kind of bizarre a little bit.
I don't get it at all.
I'm not really clear, and obviously I didn't do a whole lot of research to find out exactly what the patent is, but in this press release, all they talk about is Pure Fishing and the website, and that it touts itself as the world's leading fishing tackle company. That's it. Now, I don't know what that patent is, and I didn't look up the patent number, but just kind of weird.
Did you say the press release was at midnight last night?
11:44 p.m. Kind of bizarre. So I'm going to dig into that a little more and see what we can come up with. All right, the other thing I need to get into before we dive into Grand Lake is it kind of has a Grand Lake affiliation. If anybody's been over to basszone.com or BTL on basszone.com, I put the new banners out there, and we are going to kick off our first one-on-one lake challenge. And Bradley, you remember we did this last year, and how this works is we're going to randomly select 4 people from people that submit entries. In other words, you kind of got to apply.
Right.
All right. If you want to take part in this, you have to apply, and then on BTL, I believe I said April 15th, we will select the 4 anglers that are going to participate in this. And basically, you have 1 hour to catch whatever the threshold is. All right, it's catch and release. We weigh them, we release them right there to surpass whatever the threshold is for that day.
Right.
Okay, so let's say the
12
threshold is 12 pounds. You have 60 minutes. If you get to 48 minutes and you catch 12.06, you're it. You're the man.
You're making money.
But here's the thing. If you did it in 48 minutes and there's still 2 competitors to go, then they still have an opportunity to win the $2,500 if they catch and surpass the threshold in a quicker time. So if they do it in less than 48 minutes and surpass the weight that guy caught, then they take the lead for the $2,500.
Wow.
All right? Once you get selected, there is no entry fee to enter, all right, to apply.
Okay.
But once you get selected, there's a $250 entry fee for this. Now, for your $250, you get $100 worth of Strike King lures that you're going to select, of which you will use those lures during the competition. So you're going to have full access to the entire Strike King line. It's not just going to be hard baits, soft baits, spinner baits, top waters, whatever it is. You're going to get the opportunity to purchase $100 worth of Strike King lures and then use those lures to try and capture the $2,500. Kind of a unique format. We did it last year. It was an enormous success.
Yeah.
And here's the cool thing. We're going to do 5 of these.
Wow.
And this is number 1.
And you got four competitors in each one.
4 competitors in each one. So all you have to do, the banner's on the main page of bassown.com. Click on the banner, and then it will have a button there that says click to enter. Once you kind of read through a few things, it's going to take place on Thursday, I believe it's April 25th. It's during the week, so you might have to take a day off of work if you're not retired or something like that, or have a job like us or whatever it is.
Right.
All right. And then on April 15th, we're going to announce who those 4 anglers are. You'll put in your Strike King order. Your stuff will be there in plenty of time. And then here's the other thing that we do. We split the lake up into 4 areas. You do not know what area you're fishing until the morning of the event. And we have maps that we will hand out. They'll be laminated. And then it shows the boundary of the area that you select. Now, on the show, when we select the 4 anglers, we will assign them numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So whoever is number 1, they will get the first opportunity to select the number that we have on that area. Okay? So number 1 says, I want area 3. Okay, area 3 is the Elk River. So, boom, he's in the Elk River.
Okay.
All right, so see how that works?
Competitor number 2 can't go there later.
That's right. They're all going to have 4 distinct areas that they're going to fish, and they're just going to draw them randomly.
Okay.
All right, based upon, whatever number that they select.
Well, they're not drawing the spot randomly. They're drawing the number to pick randomly.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. All right. And we'll have the 4 areas. And here's the deal. There's no off limits because you have no idea what area you're going to pick. And we're not going to tell you what those 4 areas are. So you can fish, you can do whatever, you can check out all parts of the lake, and then we will announce what the areas are that morning and hand out the maps.
Awesome.
So kind of a cool deal. It was very cool last year. And we'll see. We'll see how many people we get. Hey, all you got to do is fill out the form if you're interested in doing this, and then once we select the 4 people, then you pony up your $250 and you get your $100 worth of Strike King lures, and it's you against the lake. You always say, Bradley, you professionals always say, it's not me against whoever. It's me against the fish. It's me against the lake. This is about the truest form that you can have.
And you're fishing clean water.
Clean water. And nobody else.
Yep.
It's just you. Also, the coolest thing about this whole deal is it's going to be live streamed. You're going to be live on bassown.com, and you're going to be live on YouTube.
Live?
So, live, in action.
Sweet.
So, you kind of, you get that little tight collar maybe a little bit, especially if the threshold is 12 pounds and you're sitting on 9.80. You need that 3-pounder or that little 2.5-pounder right there. Win you $2,500. So we're going to do it 5 times this year on different lakes, and very excited. Can't thank Strike King enough for coming on board and doing this, and very excited. Huge opportunity. I mean, it's just one guy for a $250 entry fee. You got a chance to win $2,500.
Yeah, and it's not like the thresholds are just astronomical either. I mean, try to get real close to what.
Yeah, and like we're not going to set the threshold right now.
Right.
All right, what we're going to do is we're going to see what the conditions are like. We're going to see, what the results have been lately. So it is going to be an obtainable number
right.
in 60 minutes.
Yep.
Everything over 1 pound counts. So if you catch a 1 pounder, if you could catch 12 1-pounders in 60 minutes. Well, this time of the year in April, that's very feasible, isn't it, Bradley?
Absolutely. Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. Please, I really, really hope that a lot of people enter for this, and we'll pick our 4 and get after it.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
All right, man. Speaking of Grand Lake, let's dive right into it. And what I want to start out with, and folks, in case you don't know, Brad has an enormous amount of experience on Grand Lake. He's won tournaments. He's kicked several people's butts in this area numerous times on that body of water. And what I'm curious about, Bradley, to kick things off is, how did you approach practice for this event?
I think I just wanted to cover some water, but I wanted to be careful not to try to cover from the whole thing, because you can't do that in 3 days, right? It's just unattainable.
Did you break it up into sections?
That's what I tried to do, and I still found myself kind of chasing my tail. I personally prefer, where I really, really feel at home is probably from the Horse Creek to that Wolf Creek area.
Yeah.
That what we kind of call mid-lake.
Right.
And that's really kind of my home region. Now, I like the whole lake, obviously, but that part of the lake was really, really stained. Up around Sailboat Bridge almost had like a chalk color to it. It was had just turned over, it was muddy, but then it had like a white film to it. It was very difficult to get bit in that area of the lake. And I spent a lot of time in practice around that area. The Honey Creek area looked really good back behind the bridge, the watercolor wise, but some of that stuff, man, it wasn't acting like it normally would. The first day of practice, here was another big thing we had to, was lake levels. Grand Lake normally sits at 742 is what they call normal pool.
Right.
Now, historically, it was 745 in the summer, which is 3 feet higher. They kept it there, but a lot of things have changed. And so now it's 742. They've dropped that lake level. And so they're adamant that they're going to keep it there. Well, they had the rain and the water had come up, and it had been at 745, and we caught it at about 744.5 in first day of practice.
Okay.
And it's falling throughout practice and falling throughout the tournament.
Okay.
I ran some stuff around the airport area the first morning of practice, and I got a couple of bites, but nothing committed. Slipped off down into a stretch in Honey Creek and got a couple of bites, but it's still same thing, not connecting with spinnerbait. Just very sluggish fish. And then I ran a couple of bushes, and I caught a giant, like a 7-pounder.
Okay.
Big one.
All right.
And I took a picture of it for, social media purposes and whatnot, and then moved on down the bank, picked up a spinnerbait that had a covered hook on it, and I think I had one more just really nice blow up on it. But the problem was, like I said, is that was sitting at 744.5.
Right.
So I'm very aware of lake levels there and what will play and what won't play. And I didn't want to continue practicing that way, because I knew that was going to be going away. And there was a very high likelihood they wouldn't even be there by the first day of the tournament.
Right.
Second day of practice, man, I don't even remember.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you weather watching? Were you looking at what the weather predictions were for once the event started?
Absolutely. We were definitely looking at that. But the whole week was just an up and down, but it was warming.
Yeah.
So if you could just get to the weekend, it was getting nicer every day, weather temperature-wise, until Saturday. And then that's when the bottom was going to fall out. And things were going to change. But,
yep.
That was probably late enough in the event that we could recover from that pretty easy. Covered some more of the water, went and, spent some time in the elk like everybody, just because it was so tough. Basically, when it was said and done, you were looking at a practice where you would get – my best day of practice, I think I had 7 bites. My last day of practice, I had 0.
Wow.
0.
Wow.
Not a bite.
What did the elk look like? Did it look like it normally looks like this year?
It did. It did.
Was it crowded? There's a bunch of people up there, wasn't there?
There's always a lot of people in there,
yeah.
Especially the tougher the lake is. That's the arm that fires, and it just ends up with more and more pressure every time.
All right. why don't we get into it now before we go into day one and start to break down how your 3 days went? There was a lot of feedback yesterday on the show that there were some people that weren't going to be able to watch today, and they wanted you to kind of go into this whole red kicker blade thing that takes place in this area. And I actually have one. I don't know if people can see it, but it seems to be something that everybody was throwing. I had Brian Latimer on Monday, and he said he was using a white kicker blade, did not use the orange kicker blade, but so much of the FLW Live stuff, we saw guys using spinnerbaits that had that orange kicker blade. What's the scoop on that, Bradley?
It's been around a long time. What happened to Ed Barton and probably, Butchers, Christie's.
Terry Butcher.
Butcher really was throwing this thing a lot 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You didn't just buy them off the shelf with an orange blade on them back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So little Terry got to throwing it quite a bit and was quite successful in Oklahoma, and I'm sure Jason and myself, and we all got to throwing it. Ed Barton, I'm sure the guys down on the Arkansas River.
Yeah.
My feeling on it now is, honestly, is that they've seen so many. I didn't throw this in the tournament.
Really?
No. They've seen so many because they're on every shelf, pre-made.
They are.
Back then, there was a dozen guys throwing it, and it was just something different. And that's really what, I think made it so successful, was that it was something different. And if you look at this tournament, the guys that tied for first actually were throwing the exact same combination blades as spinnerbaits. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That chartreuse and white willow.
Yeah.
I caught my fish on Indiana blades, and none of them were painted. And the reason I went to the Indianas over the Colorado was there just was so many guys throwing Colorado spinnerbaits that I, just like a lawyer, felt like that those lateral lines on those fish had felt that thump so many times. I wanted something different. The willows to me were, I couldn't feel enough vibration that I wanted to feel, and the Indiana was kind of right in the middle, But I thought that it was very peculiar that both those guys, not knowing each other at different parts of the lake, both were so successful on the exact same blade combination, and a blade combination that is different.
Have you ever thrown that blade combination on Grand Lake?
I didn't even own that blade combination until we went to Lake Cumberland. When we started fishing Lake Cumberland, that's a very popular color down there for those smallmouth. And it's a stained colored lake, and rock, and it's got a lot of similarities. But yeah, it was pretty interesting to see both those guys throwing that chartreuse and white double willow.
Been around a long time, as you mentioned. Some iconic names from an Oklahoma perspective. The Butchers
this blade is
Ed Barton.
Yeah,
I mean they've been around forever and have won a ton of money on that body of water using that. So an interesting take. Besides Grand Lake, this is just kind of a general question for the fans. Somebody wanted to know yesterday, when should you use spinnerbaits that have painted blades?
Okay, so that's a pretty easy one. You're always going to be in the painted blades is going to be the more the watercolor. Obviously, I mean the spinnerbait just in general is successful in places that have more color in the water. Get you away from the swim baits and things like that. The more color you get, the more you can go to the painted blade style baits. The only thing that offsets that in clearwater situations is the smallmouth. Yeah. Smallmouth up north, they'll eat painted blades in crystal clear water.
That chartreuse willow. Yeah. Very popular.
Yeah. And it's all about the speed usually with that, because you can reel it so much faster.
Yeah. All right, man, let's go into day one. What happened on day one?
Day one of the tournament, I really didn't have a clue what was going to happen for me myself. I knew what I did know is that it was brutal, and it was brutal for everyone. There was always that chance that you weren't going to run into them. But day one, my plan basically was to just cover as much water as I could in places that I had had success before, because I really didn't have that much from practice. I fished all morning, ran, jumped, bumped, no success. And at noon, I pulled into a place and caught three, probably within a 45-minute, 1 hour stretch. And then went on another dry spell until probably 3 o'clock. I was in the last flight the first day, thank goodness. And I ran another stretch that I had actually fished in practice and never had a bite. but it's a place that I've caught them before historically. And I rolled through there and I caught 5 or 6 keepers in a 45-minute stretch. So that was a huge uplift.
Yeah.
That ended up being the tail of this tournament too. So you kind of heard me talk about the first flurry, and then nothing, and then the flurry. That was very common for a lot of guys, and that was kind of the pattern that really started to show itself throughout the event for a lot of us.
All right. Anything special about the area, or was it just a typical Grand Lake area that you had some history on?
The first day ended up being about the bushes and the willow trees for me, man.
Okay.
I had just enough water left that I was running the very last stuff that was left in the water, and there were some fish still around them.
All right, you had 16.5 on day one, and put yourself in pretty good position. What was your thinking once you got back to where you were staying at on what you were going to do on day 2?
Well, I knew that the water was going to be gone, so I was going to have to completely change directions and do something totally different. I did start day 2 in the same area thinking I might.
Was the water gone? The trees
gone, man.
Gone?
Boat was on bottom. I mean, it was just there was just nothing left. I think I pulled the plug by 9 o'clock in the morning, and I ran down lake. Almost all the ways. As far as I went a long ways down the lake.
You don't usually do that, though, do you?
Well, there was this thunderstorm coming. I mean, you could hear it in the background. It was rumbling, and I was thinking, the clearest water on this lake could possibly fire when that thunderstorm gets here. And I didn't want to be running through it either.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going. That way I can work my way back up and just stay in the bottom end of that reservoir and sling a spinnerbait during this rainstorm. And same thing on day 2, flurries. Still hadn't caught anything, got down to the bottom end of the lake, started bumping some pockets. The third pocket I went into, I got my first bite. And then the pocket next to it, I caught 3 more out of it. And the pocket next to it, I caught 4 or 5 out of it. I mean, it was just
all on a spinnerbait?
Everything on a spinnerbait. The first pocket that I went in, I think I could have caught more, but there was, and it's not that big of a pocket.
Yeah.
There were 3 other boats in there, and I didn't know at the time, but at one of them was the young man from Alabama that had 20 pounds that day. And I was trying to go down the bank and then come back up the side he was on, and I realized as I started to come up the other side that he wasn't moving. He was in protection mode. So I was like, well, that young man's caught some fish. I had no idea he had 20 pounds, but he had a 20-pound bag there. But the next pocket over was empty, and I was able to get some fish out of it. And
yeah, there were 2 Alabama guys that had 20 pounds on day 2.
Yeah.
And then who was it? I'm looking here real quick. Somebody had 21. Oh, Latimer had 21.
Yeah, Latimer cracked 21. Yeah. He sure did.
He smashed him that day. All right. We're going to take a break here before we dive into day 3. But before we go to break, I want to know, people are very familiar that know about Grand Lake. They know boat docks, pea gravel, rocks. When the water's up, obviously it's in the willows. But this time of the year, when I was watching live, and so many of the guys that were on FLW Live, they were fishing 4 or 5 different things. They were fishing skinny water. They were fishing boat docks. They were fishing front side, back side. They were fishing chunk rock. They were fishing bluffs. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of everything. But is there things that people can take from the stuff that they saw during this event and actually apply to other lakes that have the same characteristics? In other words, when these fish are getting ready to spawn, do they stage on those boat docks? Do they stage on those bluffs? What can you say about that?
Okay, so 100% you can relate it to everything else that you fish. What's happening there is it's very, very, very early in the spawning stages. The fish that were in the shallow flats, the pea gravel stuff, which you saw that.
Yeah.
Those fish were very close to spawning. Some of them, we're pretty sure they were spawning. I mean, there were some spawning fish going on. Not.
And what was the water temp? What was the water temp?
In the 50s.
Yeah.
But that was the very first thing that's going to warm up, right? But those aren't the only fish on the lake. You still have fish out in the middle of the lake that are coming that are, you know, a month behind, right? And then they move up. So then you have the fish that are on the secondary points, the fish that are on the main lake points. I mean, you still have different groups of fish at different levels throughout any reservoir. They're not all doing the same thing.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's why you saw fish being what you call hodgepodge, are actually just different patterns going on at the same time. Different stages. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Right. All stages.
All stages are going on. And you're seeing a big movement of all those stages. They're all progressing. And you're just seeing it all different levels throughout the lake.
All right. We're going to take a break. A very, very tough day 3 on you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I saw after day 2 out of the 160-some guys that were out there were 31 limits.
Yeah.
I knew that we all had that chance to run that gauntlet.
All right, man. We're going to take a break, come back with more from Bradley Hallman right here on BTL. We'll be right back.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4-strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
Hey guys, Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. Again, it's Siglon PE x8. it's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too. AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, you know, how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday. Mark Jeffries along with FLW Tour Professional Bradley Hallman. And, man, it's been a tough week this week, Bradley. I got to admit, right now, I'm going to admit, I said it on the first 2 shows this week, flying solo without my partner in crime over there.
The nature boy.
It's kind of tough, man. I'm missing the little grasshopper a little bit.
Yeah. I had a little conversation with him yesterday. I thought he was calling to give me some advice on BTL.
Yeah.
No. He was calling to me telling me how much he was enjoying Kentucky Lake.
Oh, well, we'll find out tomorrow, right? That's
right.
when we'll find out how much the enjoyment of Kentucky Lake is. All right, man, let's jump into day number 3, a brutal day for a lot of people. And the weather, cold, wind blowing, and it was tough for everybody, man.
Yeah, it was 44 was the high. We started the day at 44, and it was just going to fall throughout the day, 15, 20 mile an hour north of winds. And I think some guys had some boat issues just through takeoff because it was so rough, you know.
Yeah.
Took a while to get down the lake. I got down there again, went back with a spinnerbait, rolled a pocket, caught a 4-pounder to start the morning off about 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Wow.
I'm like, it's going to be a good day. Rolled into another spot, a little tough to get into, finagled my way in, and throw a spinnerbait in the very back corner, and had the best bite I'd had all week. I don't know, it's 6.5. It was a big fish. I saw her, you know, she came up, take a swap spinnerbait. She had it for just a second, and it was just 2 little light tugs is all I really felt on my rod. She pulled loose. But that fish was to my demise. The whole thing ended up being about flurries, right? So you could run, like if you go to Grand Lake right now, you go fish spots that are good spots, and there's fish there. Yeah. They're just not active. And
it's the funk. It's that funk we talk about.
Right. But there is a window somewhere, somehow throughout the day where you'll hit one of those
flurries.
Areas. Yes. Yeah. And they're just ignited. And when you get in there, it's honestly pretty easy. I mean, you'll notice it right off the bat, but you'll get a bite here, you'll get a bite there, and you kind of get bit by all those fish that we're talking about. They're not all just in one spot, but that little pocket will be active, and possibly the one next to it, but then you'll lose it and you won't get another bite for 4 hours. But to hit that, you have to keep going. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can't catch them and then go through the same pocket again and more bites. Well, my problem with that big one is that it messed up my flow throughout. You know, I intended to fish all the way up the lake throughout the day.
Right.
Well, 11:30, and I still got the 1 4-pounder. You know what I'm thinking?
I got to go.
If I can just get her to bite. I've got 10 pounds with 2
You
fish.
didn't think I got to go.
I had to go back.
Oh, geez.
I had to, because I just barely, if I'd have had her on, you know, like hit her hard. And
we're using a trailer hook?
I wouldn't have even tried. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That new Hayabusa, by the way, is just money. Money trailer hook. Yeah. I caught a lot of fish.
Was it off a boat dock?
It was.
Behind or front side?
Behind.
Okay.
Very difficult to get
cables.
To. Oh yeah. It was a cowling scratcher, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Just to get there.
Okay.
But anyway, I had to go back, and I went back, and of course she didn't bite, and she had no friends. And the biggest part is that it just took me out of my rhythm. It didn't allow me to progress up the lake as I needed to. And I just, you know, I never hit one of those pockets that they were activated in. And it really just kept me from fishing newer water and just staying.
So was that the biggest mistake that you made during the week?
Absolutely. And I knew in my heart, I was like, do not go back after that fish, dude.
Yeah.
But she was just so big.
Yeah, typically when the conditions were the way that they were, will they bite again? Typically.
typically anytime you hook one, they're not biting again.
Right.
But she had just barely got a hold of it. Just barely.
You're even trying to convince yourself right now that you could still go back and catch that fish, Bradley.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, so you just got to keep rolling. But that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made throughout the week. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Maynard wants to know: did you throw any crankbaits anytime during the week?
So on that third day, I really thought about it. I went into an area that I had been into the day before for just a little bit, and actually just seen who all was in there. Really, is about all I was in there long enough for. I didn't have any bites, but I knew that a 16-pound bag had come out of there the day before, so I rolled back over there. It's a place that I've had some history and caught some fish in, and I talked to two of them. Joey was in there, and one of the other boys, Josh Douglas, was in there. Both of them cranking, and Douglas told me that he had 4 keepers. Part of me thought, pick up that crankbait and get to work. But then the okie and the stubbornness, the crankbait, it would have probably generated a couple more bites in the spinnerbait.
What kind of crankbait? Can you say?
And it's really not that.
Like Fire Tiger, Crawdad color, medium running crank,
Yeah, no, it would be like
flat side.
The flat sides were working, right?
Okay.
Any of the medium runners, like a Bandit, something like that. But you really want something with a tight wiggle. As cold as the water was, and something in a crawfish pattern. If it's a little more stained water, you can go more to the red in the crawfish, and as it gets clearer, you can go to more natural browns. But square bills, on the bank, they were a little deeper than that. But here was my deal with Grant on the crankbait, and on the third day, okay, because you got to realize my goals.
Yeah,
my goals. I mean, obviously, I want to make Sunday, but my goal really is to try to catch 20 pounds and get in position to really do something at home.
Yep.
The bite on a spinnerbait for me, if I throw it all day and get 6 bites, are going to outweigh 6 bites on that crankbait.
Understand.
Like I said, I had 2 fish that could have gone 10 pounds. Whereas if I go throw that crankbait all day, I catch 5 that weigh 10 pounds. Now, I'm not saying it's always that way or you can't catch big ones on a crankbait. I mean, look at what Billy did. When I'm coming back in, I stopped on a spot. McCagerin was not there. I thought, man, I just want to go in here. So I was going to fish the mouth of it, and I was like, no, I'm going to go back there and fish that boat ramp. So I go back there and fish the boat ramp, and then I'm going to come out and fish the mouth. Well, I come back out to fish the mouth. This is at the end of the day. And McCagerin's sitting there, Billy. And his boat's floating all around, and he's just, you can tell he's discombobulated. And I'm like, hey, man, you doing any good? And he's like, I just caught a 6-pounder on a crankbait.
There you have it.
So, I mean, you can catch big bags on crankbait. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying odds-wise, spinnerbait would give you a better bite. And the stubbornness, I couldn't get it out of my hand.
All right, understandable. Now, you get back to the weigh-in. Obviously, you're talking to guys. As you and what your style is, what are you thinking when you're standing there in the weigh-in line? You're just like, what the heck did I just do? I mean, are you reflected? Do you reflect immediately afterwards, or you just go up, weigh your fish, take care of business, and get the heck out of there?
The only thing that weigh-in took for, the Saturday weigh-ins, if you don't get in early, you're standing in the bag line for a long time with 30 guys, and it's just the way it is. So you got a lot of time to reflect and talk to other people. But Mark, I'm really not upset with myself. I mean, I realize what the lake is and the potential and how tough it is. I'm very happy with making it into the weekend. My whole family was there, friends, lots of support. It meant a lot to me that all those people were there to be able, we travel all over the country and we never see anybody, and to be able to come home and see all those people and support at a weigh-in is incredible. I was just, appreciative to be there on the weekend, and it just wasn't my day the last day, and I went down swinging for sure. All
right, man. Maynard also wants to know what you said about the crankbait. Do you feel the same way about a jig?
No. The jig can do big things, and the crankbait can too. It's just seasonal. I'm not saying that you can't catch big bag. There's times when the crankbait,
it was just during that tournament,
during that event, the way things were set up. That's right. There was a lot of big fish suspended. Is what the deal was.
All right.
The jig. Oh my gosh! To go to that event. The entire practice. I picked it up and threw it a lot.
Yeah.
There were guys on all the FLW feeds that were doing the practice lives and stuff, catching them on jigs. I threw it every day in the event. At some point, I threw it at least probably 30 minutes of every day. Some days, maybe just a little bit more. In certain places where I would see something that, that needs a jig in it. Yeah. I never caught a fish on a jig the entire week I was there.
That's unbelievable, man. It really is.
One bite, and she didn't pick it up. One. Never had.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just mind-boggling.
Now, quite a few people on the instant feedback, going back to the spinnerbait, they want to know, what line do you throw with it? Do you throw braid? Do you throw mono? What do you do?
I do a lot of different things. A lot of it depends on what part of the country and where I am.
Well, I mean, for this event with all the cables and everything around the boat docks and everything.
I'm 20-pound fluorocarbon.
Okay.
20-pound fluorocarbon. Yep. 20-pound sunline. That's what I'm throwing.
All right. You got an opportunity to do a little recreational fishing.
Yeah.
Once this event was over. I'm seeing things on social media.
Yep.
What can you say about that, Bradley?
Scott Martin had told me he's had this idea in his head for a while. He started hitting me up about it about 3 years ago. But after the last couple events, he was like, "Hey man, when we get to Oklahoma, we get some time. Can we do a show there?" And blah 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 blah. I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You think we can catch them?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we can catch them." Because I mean, I'm looking at the time, of Grand being when it is, and he had a little place picked out in Oklahoma that he wanted to go to. And asked if I was familiar with it. I told him, yeah, sure, let's go do it.
It wasn't Dave Smith's private lake, was it?
No, it was not Dave Smith's.
Have you ever been there? Have you been there to Dave Smith's lake?
I have not. I've heard lots of stories.
Oh, geez. Yeah, it's pretty insane. But anyway, you threw some pictures out there, and it sounds like a fun time.
Yeah,
man.
Scott and I met up Monday morning and hit the lake and filmed a Scott Martin Challenge show for Discovery and a YouTube deal for his YouTube channel, and I think he's releasing it in a week or two. So not going to let too much out there, but the social media, my social media or Scott's both got it on there. You can see pictures from Monday, and they're pretty impressive.
Cool. How often do you get to do that, Bradley, where you're just fun fishing? With as busy as you are, fishing the Costas, fishing the FLW Tour. I mean, we have all these people on the show, and I always ask them, hey, do you fish the local derbies? Do you just have time to get out? What's that like for you, man?
Man, I wanted to go back today. I want to go tomorrow. Every day something else comes up. You got to realize I've got, children and a wife and other things going on in life, and they just like everybody else. It's just, if you don't have it scheduled, tournaments are almost like how you schedule work, And if it's not scheduled there, you're not, it's hard to get time to go.
Yeah. All right. Thoughts on the next event? You have this week off, and then you're back after it.
Yeah, we're going to a lake that there's not a lot of history on as far as to be able to research, like we've talked about before.
Cherokee.
Online. Yeah, Cherokee. BASS was there, but they were there in February. A lot different time of year. A lot of
the lake was way, way, way down then, too.
Yeah, it has big swings, really different the research I've done on that place. But I think that there's going to be a couple different deals going on there. I think there's going to be some smallmouth stuff going on. Obviously, everybody's talking about that, and some largemouth stuff. It's just which one are going to play the heaviest.
It's really cool to be able to break down each event, but I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the remainder of the season? Yeah, you got Cherokee coming up, but 2 more events after that. What are your thoughts on that, Bradley?
I'm really excited about all of them. Cherokee, and then we're going to Chickamauga after that, and it's just a freak show of giant bags coming in. You see 40-pound bags quite regular.
Champlain is the last one, right?
And then we're finished the season in the most beautiful place in the country, I believe. So Champlain is just gorgeous.
Yeah. Now, have you made that run down to Ticonderoga?
I have practiced in Ty probably every event that I have ever.
But never made the run to Ty?
Never made the run. Huh. Never made the run. But I always spend time down there.
It's a cool place, man.
Cool place. It's just great. Looking at the castle and fishing.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible.
It's one of the most, and you know how much of a topwater nut is. And I remember when the first time that we went there with the Elite Series and we saw Steve Kennedy was making these frogs.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And he's
making them.
Just tinkering around and doing stuff. And he had like 20 of them out on the table back when he was doing the RV thing.
Yep.
And he said, man, you would not believe how these fish attack this frog through the water chestnuts.
Yeah.
And I told Harold and Matt at the time, I was like, dude, we got to go try this after this thing's over. I mean, how many times are you going to go to Champlain when you're from Oklahoma? So that was my first experience with these Polaris missiles busting through those water chestnut patches, because the water chestnuts just set right on top of the water. And you'd go down a bank and you'd see just ginormous holes in these water chestnut patches where obviously somebody hooked up and they exploded on it. But you're dead on, man. It is one of the most gorgeous places to fish and just spend time up there. And it's unfortunate that you can only fish it, 3-4 months out of the year because it's so freaking cold.
See, that event that you're talking about was in August, and that's when it really heats up down in the Ticonderoga deal, you know, and Topwater Bite's good. We're going a lot earlier, but that place is just gorgeous.
All right. Maynard also wants to know, it says, is this the year of the spinnerbait and the square bill? It seems like so many events on all three trails have been either won or you've had really good performances with the spinnerbait. I need to throw one in there besides that, and that's a chatterbait. I mean, good grief. How many?
The chatterbait played a grand. There's no doubt. Brian Thrift was throwing it. You know, I mean, he's a chatterbait guy. He was catching them on it. It's a good substitute for the spinnerbait. Same thing. It is something different.
Did you throw it at all?
Man, no way. I throw that thing 5 foot on the side, 5 foot to the side of the laydown, and it will run over there and hang up on it every single time.
Really?
Yeah, every time.
Okay.
No. In the grass, I'll go throw it where there's no trees around. But you get me around laydowns, no way.
You're hanging up.
I'm hanging up.
All right. What else, man? Is there anything off the water that took place during the grand event? Just in the discussion with your peers and maybe some of the stuff that the other guys going on that people might get a little bit of an insight. It's kind of unique from a perspective. You're staying with 3 guys, is that right? 2 or 3 guys. You know very well. You guys help each other out. You trust everybody. What was some of the conversation that took place with how tough and that flurry zone is kind of how you would classify it when things get going? Were the conversations at night intriguing, or was it just typical conversation or heads being banged up against the wall because they can't figure something out?
It was definitely heads banged against the wall. All of us were. It was tough. I mean, it wasn't easy at any point. There was no guarantee that you're going to. There was no. I had not one spot that I was just thought I can go there and I can catch a couple fish if I need a couple. None. Didn't have that. Didn't exist.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone did. The guy from Africa. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. That tied for the win. Which, by the way, that's worth.
Is that how you say his last name?
That's a great thing to talk about. A tie for the win. I mean,
the tiebreaker. You didn't even know that.
That's twice. Do you realize that Costa was a tie also last year? Remember that?
Yeah.
Chris Jones and help me.
I don't remember.
Jones won, and he's MLF. He's killing Sprague.
Jeff Sprague. Yeah,
they tied in Costa last year and had the tiebreaker to actually decide who wins. So
I would like to see the fish off. Now, hear me out. What do you think about this? We actually got into a little discussion through some of the kids at school that are part of the fishing club there. We were just talking after school, and I said, wouldn't it have been cool to send those guys out on the water live on FLW Live on Monday?
Oh, yeah.
And the first guy to catch a fish, boom, it's over, sudden death. And do the live thing the whole way.
You saw them both take off and go straight there to the Bacon Wolf Creek.
But still, I mean, now you have drama, and you really could have built it up based upon all the distribution that you had from the fans and the viewers to be able to watch this thing. And for the first time, it goes to sudden death, and there you have it. It's live, and everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Would you like that?
I don't like the sudden death idea. I know.
Go out and catch your best 5 for 4 hours?
4 hours, yeah. Best 5 in 4 hours. That's a fair shake. Yeah, and I do think that would have been awesome on live on Monday.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
I mean, I know it would have sent him back on day 5, that whole production of that, but I think
cares?
The fan interest and the drama that would have been created by having to go out on the water for 4 hours.
Great idea, Mark.
Yeah, so we'll see if that ever happens. Hopefully, there's some events that I think it's over on the bass side that they do have that. I think it is sudden death. I can't remember. I know if they have a tie, they were
some
talking
of the ties
about,
they've had fish offs. It hadn't been a sudden death that I remember historically. They've had a certain amount of time and then 5 best.
Yep.
But man, that was before live. See, that's what really makes that. Two guys.
It could have been dry. It's like our one-on-one thing that we're doing.
2 guys, 4 hours live.
Yeah.
Monday.
People would have been glued.
Oh, man.
I mean, even though, with no disrespect to the South Africa guy, I don't think it'd matter. You could have Jimmy Joe Bob Smith out there, it wouldn't matter because of the drama that's created.
It would have been phenomenal.
All right, man. What else? Anything else you want to talk about? Get
no
off your chest?
News.
Talk
No,
about?
I don't think so. We're rooting for the Nature Boy this week, right?
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. You know, it sets up really well. I'm not talking about Kentucky Lake, but the 3 events, he has a lot of history on Table Rock, has a lot of history on Lake of the Ozarks. So if he can get past this one and have a decent finish, I think he's going to do well at the next 2 at Table Rock and Lake of the Ozarks.
It's all
no doubt.
Embracing the grind.
That's what it is. And this week is a grind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agree? I mean, you have a ton of experience on Kentucky Lake.
Look,
it is a grind.
I don't want to talk bad about Kentucky Lake, but it is basically a carp fest. I mean, it is just so over the top with the aging carps, and it has really affected the bass fishing population. It is a very tough fishery right now.
All right. Any local derbies do you have on the radar that you might be hitting, or are you just focused on Cherokee and the remaining 2 events after that?
Yeah, definitely just focused on the last 3 events of the year. Looking forward to going to Cherokee. I've got a lot of work to do to get ready for Cherokee just over the next 2 or 3 days, because I think I'm driving on Friday. So I've got today's Wednesday.
Yeah,
I got a day and a half.
You need to get busy, man.
I know it.
You need to get busy. All right, Matt, he's going to be back in studio on Monday. Make sure you check out bassown.com and the BTL page. We will have our guest lineup posted on there sometime on Sunday. So, Brad, as always, man, thanks for coming in. Great job. 14th, not bad. I know it's not the final day, but still a nice trip to the bank with that check from FLW. And, hey, don't forget, check out the one-on-one live lake challenge presented by Strike King. Go in there, see the info, sign up, and have a shot for just 1 hour to win $2,500.
That's right.
All right, cool deal. All right, everybody be safe, get out, try and get some fishing done. We're out of here.